All right, so tonight we're going to work on factoring with a leading coefficient, and make sure you put your data in your notes. Up till now, we've been working on equations that look like this, where we have a trinomial and we want to factor it into a binomial, okay? And we've been looking at this last term here and saying, what factors of 4 add to 5? In this case, it's pretty easy. 1 times 4 is 4. And 1 plus 4 is 5. And we know to get this term, we have to multiply the two x's together. And then we know we have plus 1 and plus 4 as our factored form. Well, in this case, we have a leading coefficient of 2. So we have a number in front of that v squared. So the process is the same here, and we're kind of doing the same thing without really knowing it. In this case, really, we're multiplying 1 times 4 to get this 4. But it's always 1, so we hadn't been doing that. In this case, we actually have a number here, which is 2. So in order to factor this completely, because we know in order to get this first term here, it's v times v, but one of these is going to have to be a 2. Okay? So we have to do this slightly different. So we're going to multiply the 2 by the 9, which gives me 18. And then just like over here, we have to figure out what factors of 18 add to 11. So the only thing different in this one is we're multiplying the first and the last to get this number here, which we were always doing in this case over here, except this leading coefficient was always 1, so it didn't matter. So in this case, it's pretty simple. It's what I multiplied. I know 2 times 9 is 18. And 2 plus 9 is 11. So this is where it gets a little bit more difficult. So when we're writing our rules, the first step here is to multiply the first and last term together, okay? And then the second rule is just like before, find the factors that add to the middle term. Okay, so the first step is similar to what we've been doing. Now this step is a little bit different. So what we're going to do is we're going to write this 2v squared here. And then I'm going to replace this 11v with my 2 and 9. So I'm going to change that to 2v plus 9v, okay? Because 2v plus 9v is 11v. So I didn't change this problem. I'm just separating it up different. So I separate it out into my two factors, and then I bring in my plus 9 here, okay? So let's give ourselves a little more room. So the next step here is to write out the equation with the two, not factored, two factors. Okay, so we did that here. Then our next step, so now we're going to have 4 terms. Our next step is to divide this into basically 2 problems. We're going to put parentheses around the first 2 and the last 2 terms. Okay, so our fourth rule is to put in parentheses. Okay, so now once we're to here, we're going to do what we were doing in class today. We're going to factor. So I'm going to look for the GCF. So I'm going to look at these 2 terms, and I can see they both have a v in them. So I can divide by v, and they both have a 2 in them. So I can divide by 2. So I'm going to bring my GCF out front here. And then when I divide this, 2 divides by 2. And then we have v squared over v, which gives me this v to the 1. I'm going to bring down my plus. And I have 2v over 2v, which crosses off and gives me 1. Okay, so I'm just factoring this just like we did in class today. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. They both don't have v, so I can't divide by v, but they both have 9, so I can divide by 9. So I'm going to bring this plus down, bring my GCF of 9 out, and then I'm going to divide. 9 divided by 9 is 1, and then we have this v here. We put in our plus, and 9 divided by 9 is 1. Now the key here is I know I've done this right if these two match. They both have v plus 1 and v plus 1, so I know I did it correctly. So now my final answer is I'm going to bring my two GCFs, my 2v and my plus 9. I'm going to put those in one parenthesis, and then I'm going to factor one of these out, so I'm basically just going to bring one of those down. And then this is my answer right here. Now I can check it and make sure it's right by multiplying. That's 2v squared. That's 2v. Multiply that. That's 9v. And that's plus 9. And that gives me 11v. So I get back to my original equation here. Okay? So we put in our parentheses here. And number 4. And then the 5 is just to factor. I know that's a lot and it's a little confusing. We're going to work on this a little bit. Let's look at one more example here. Okay, so we got a fresh problem here. Okay, I'm going to ignore this equals 0 for right now. And just like we said, our first step is to multiply these two together. So that's going to give me 20. And it's going to have to add to my middle term here, which is 21. And I see that's pretty easy. I multiplied 2 times 10 to get 20, but 2 plus 10 does not give me 21, so that's not it. 1 times 20 gives me 20, and 1 plus 20 gives me 21, so I know this is it. Okay? So remember, our next step is to rewrite this, 2v squared, and then I'm going to take this and put it down, break it into two parts of my factors. So I'm going to change that to plus 1v plus 20v, because again, that equals 21v, and then bring down my last term here, which is 10. Okay? And then from here on out, oh my gosh, I think these are giving me a headache. We want to put in our parentheses. Okay? So I'm going to put my parentheses around the first two and around the last two terms. Okay, so now I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, what can I factor out? Well, they both have v's, and then 2 and 1 are prime, so there's no numbers to divide. So I'm going to bring out my GCF here. I know 2 divided by 1 would give me 2. V squared over v gives me v. Bring down my plus. Here my v's cross off and leave me with the 1. Okay? Now I'm going to bring down this plus here. And what goes into 20 and 10? Well, 10, of course. And this has a v, but this does not, so we can't divide by v. So I bring out my GCF of 10. Now I'm going to divide 20 by 10, which gives me 10v. And then not 10v, what's 20 divided by 10? That would give me 2v. Plus 10 divided by 10 is 1. Do our little check. This matches this, so I know I did it right. So I'm going to put my first two GCFs in one parenthesis, that's 10 plus v, and then bring down one of these matchers, right? And then my equation up top, it says equals 0, so that means it wants me to tell them the zeros of the quadratic. So we're just going to go v plus 10 equals 0. And 2v plus 1 equals 0. Subtract the 10. So one of the roots is negative 10. Here we subtract the 1, and we get 2v equals negative 1. Divide by 2, and the other root of my parabola is negative 1/2. So if I put it in coordinates, negative 10 is a y-intercept, and negative 1/2 is a y-intercept. All right, so I know it's a little bit long. I want you guys to try this one. It's pretty straightforward, and see if you can come up with your answer there, and then we'll be working on this tomorrow. I know it's a tough concept. Good night.